Welcome, David Leahy, founder and CEO of Goodwill Wine. 12 years ago, David lost most of what he owned in the Black Saturday bushfires. He was, of course, grateful to be alive and also humbled at how Australians stepped up to help. Because of the money dropped into donation tins around the country, he was able to start again. And so, with a powerful new motivation to drive him on, he made it his mission to pay forward the incredible generosity shown to him. He decided to start a business that gave back 50% of profit to charity, of everything he earned to charity, and he would give it to the charities his customers cared the most about. He loved wine and had some great contacts in the Australian wine industry who agreed to help. And so with the $15,000 given to him through the Red Cross Bushfire Appeal, Goodwill Wine was born. With every purchase of wine, customers are able to choose the charity that they want the money to go to, either from a list of top picks or to search the full database of over 300 charities. You can also add your own favorite if it's not listed. David has now given back over $420,000 through Goodwill Wine, well on the way to his goal of $1 million to charity. This money has put 200,000 meals on the tables of Australians living in poverty, bought high-vis weather gear and defibrillators for volunteer fire brigades, played a role in introducing a plastic bag ban in Queensland, funded 5 international animal cruelty investigations for Animals Australia, helped rehome 50 orangutans, desexed, vaccinated, microchipped, wormed, and rehomed 100 dogs and 150 cats, and even helped save 12 whales for Sea Shepherd by paying for fuel for their Southern Ocean campaigns. And I'm sure many of those numbers have gone up since the last count. Goodwill Wine also looks after the environment. It's important to note in using 100% recycled cardboard packaging and also offsetting 100% of the carbon footprint of shipping and transport via Green Plate. And 2 years ago, Goodwill Wine took on its first round of angel investment, which has seen the business grow over 500% and dramatically increase the amount of money being donated. So I'm looking forward to chatting to David about that. David anticipates that it won't be long before he reaches the $1 million mark donated. And after that, he says the sky's the limit. Now, one of the things that I love the most about this business is that I think most of us remember donating to the bushfire appeal here in Australia. And it's just so cool to see what that money meant for someone who was impacted. And also what it then inspired you to do in paying it forward, David. And that kind of inspires people to continue donating and want to keep donating more to see that impact that it's had, like a little circle of life. So welcome to the Small Business Big Impact interview series, David.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. I'm really happy to be here and happy to answer your questions.
Great. All right. So 50% of profits to charity. As most small businesses know, or most new startups are very aware, it takes a while before you're even making profit in the first place. So how did that work in the early days?
Well, we've got an unusual model in that we pay the charities first, and then we scramble to pay ourselves. And so, in the first few years, we were giving $2 a bottle to charity, and certainly in the first year, that equated to actually more than 100% of the profit. It was around about 110%. And so I was working a second job, and the charities were getting paid from that second job. And then as the business grew, that percentage slowly began to reduce. So we're still yet to hit the 50% donated. To date, we've averaged around about 72% of the profit has gone to charity, but we're growing, and we're growing really quite quickly at the moment, and we're looking forward to the day that we get down to that 50%, and then after that we begin donating more on top of what we already do donate. So yeah, our model is pay the charities first and then scramble to pay ourselves. It has been quite challenging.
Goodness. And so how did you plan that from the start, I guess, in terms of calculating how much from each bottle you were going to be sending to charity?
Well, I actually after the fires, I did a government program called the SEVS NEATS, and they put me through a 6 month um, small business course, and I thought the business would grow a lot more quickly than it did, and so I estimated what we felt might be 50% of the profit, and um, it took, well, it still is taking time to reach that point, but really, we just had to pick a dollar amount um, and cross our fingers and hope. What it did mean was that for the first 3 years of the business, I rolled out a swag alongside my wines on a warehouse floor, and I wasn't meant to be there, and so I was, to all intents and purposes, with the other people who worked in the complex, I was the first there in the morning to work and the last to leave, because I didn't leave, and really all there was to do was work. So those kind of 14, 16-hour days were kind of instrumental, I guess, in really kickstarting the business and getting the first charities on board and giving it the best chance to grow, particularly when you're giving such a large amount of your profit.
Absolutely. That sounds very familiar because I also did that program, the NEACE program, and it's all a guessing game when you're first starting out, isn't it?
It is.
But obviously you've pushed through that period, that struggle, and you've stayed committed to the 50% to charity model. So why does that continue to be important to you? And do you think that it's a good model for other businesses?
It's a challenging model for businesses. We're a social enterprise, a certified social enterprise. I didn't find out I was a social enterprise until 2 years into the business, when an organisation called Social Traders contacted me and informed me of what I was. But why have we stayed true to that? That was why we started. We started to reward the supporters of good causes with good quality wine, and we've stayed that course, and we've grown as a result of the loyalty that we've engendered, our commitment to that path. And I knew it was going to be challenging, but I guess we pursued a path of, the priority has been on the customer, the priority has been on the charity, the priority hasn't been on generating profit, maximizing profit. And so I always had faith that if we stayed the course and remain committed to our initial goals, that we would grow, and we would grow, to a point where, I could earn a normal income, and I could employ people who could do similarly. So we've almost reached that point.
That must be such a relief to feel like, you're kind of at the top of the hill.
Look, I think we've got a little bit more climbing to do, but there's some big things about to happen, and some very exciting things, and I'm looking forward to 2022 and beyond.
Yeah. So obviously, getting close to cresting that hill, you've really seen some pickup in terms of, the growth of the business. I know it's grown fantastically recently. So can you tell me more a little bit about the benefits that you've seen to the business, especially in that charity model, like what that has seen in terms of return?
Well, it's certainly the last 2 years, with, as you mentioned in your introduction, the angel investment provided capital to begin dramatically expanding, and creating awareness, and that awareness has brought us in front of a lot more charities. So whereas for the first few years it was me on the phone trying to convince a charity that this was a different sort of wine, a different sort of model to what you know, they were used to. Now there's enough of the goodwill wines turning up to dinners, the conversation starting, a charity's finding out about it, and are now kind of coming to us in large numbers, because it's such a I guess an easy way, and you know, a cost-free way for them to add to their income stream, and then also create awareness about that cause. The growth has allowed us to move into a bigger warehouse. It's allowed us to, you know, buy forklifts and you know, pallet racking, and begin having a little bit more buying power with the wines. So, you know, if we're coming across a vineyard who has, you know, 3 pallets of wine for whatever reason, and there's many reasons, we can now buy all 3 pallets, and often, you know, they might just want to try to move it all off in one hit, and we might miss out in the past because we just couldn't take all 3. It's the growth has allowed me to surround myself with people who are really clever and, you know, smarter than me in many different areas, and so whilst I've been this jack of all trades, it really kind of feels like I've been sitting at that kind of, you know, 95% mark, never really nailing anything 100%, and so I've been able to bring on people who can, and that's been such an important aspect of the new business, the new improved Goodwill Wine.
And do you think that some of those people are attracted by the ethos of the business, that they specifically want to work with you for that reason?
Absolutely. And so when I took on my investment, I initially was contacted by an impact investor. He was in London at the time, and was heading to Australia, had been to Australia, was born in Melbourne, and so had tried the wine over the years, really liked the wine. And he was looking for ways to invest in businesses he felt had huge potential to grow, but were primarily doing something to help the world. And so he had, you know, previously, there might have been kind of 20 businesses that he'd previously invested in, perhaps. I don't know the exact number, but we met in a coffee shop and shook hands right there and then. And as a result of that, a number of other investors came out of the woodwork as soon as that first initial kind of significant investment kind of was announced, I guess. And I then had the good fortune to be able to pick and choose who I wanted to get into bed with. And, you know, there was no shortage of people who kind of saw this as something that could grow significantly, but were less interested in the charitable element in the business, and, you know, may even have liked to have removed that element from the business. And, you know, that's not someone I'm interested in, you know, getting into business with. That's really not someone I'm interested in knowing. And so I got to pick and choose, and I picked people who could bring a skill, not just cash, because it turned out that the cash was there if I wanted it. After that initial investment, you know, it then became a snowball effect, and so I got to pick and choose who I wanted on board. And so I picked kind of one of the best ad people in the country who initially had pitched a rebranding idea when we went out hunting for it, but quickly fell in love with the actual concept of it all, and came on as an equity investor, and so kind of provided the work essentially for free, but took a stake, and that's been amazing to have someone with that sort of talent. And then someone else who's invested quite significantly is you know, a market research guru, and that watching those, you know, those two working together has been kind of really powerful, to be able to kind of look into where we should be looking at growing, and how kind of that audience looks, and then targeting the marketing towards that. You know, I brought on one of the best winemakers I know. I brought on a brilliant horticulturalist, permaculture guru, and this is all, you know, future planning for when we eventually do have vineyards and we do start making wine ourselves, because at the moment we just source little ends of runs from little boutique vineyards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then there's, you know, several other people as well I brought on who I just knew kind of were experts in areas that I wasn't, and so that's been fantastic to lean on those people. So that's something that that the investment has provided, is not just the cash but the expertise that I lacked.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that every small business struggles with, you know, is
Yeah.
trying to do everything themselves, not doing anything perfectly, but to be able to attract the right people, the investors and the expertise who really align with the idea of the business, who are attracted to the business for that reason.
That's
It's
it.
a massive help.
That's it. And so, yeah, I've flailed around for the best part of 10 years. You know, and not for want of trying, but just you can't do everything. You can't do everything. And the problem is with small businesses, how do you afford to get people to kind of come on that journey with you? You know, because they're not cheap. If you they're not cheap for that sort of expertise.
Yeah.
So,
Looking back, do you have any sort of lessons learned on how you would have approached it differently earlier on and not spent 10 years without it?
uh, I would have. There was help available back then, which I didn't kind of find out. Well, for the first 2 years, I operated as just as a business that gave 50% of its profit. I always felt a little bit uncomfortable calling myself a for-profit business. At the same time, I wasn't a charity. I didn't know what I was, and it wasn't until I got that call from Social Traders, who are the certification body here in Australia for social enterprises, and you know, they just, that initial phone call was amazing, because there I was living in a shed. You know, the room I was in was about 5 foot tall. I'm 6 foot, and it was nice to find out that there were other people out there doing the same thing as me, and there was actually a lot of us. And so there was this family I was introduced to, and so 2 years in, I began to get a little bit of help from people who knew better. So that kind of, I guess, was the beginning of that learning. As far as mistakes go, I've just made so many. It's been prolific mistakes, because it's such a new field. Like I don't know if kind of the people listening to this podcast have heard about social enterprise before. You know, they may have heard about BCorp, but social enterprise has been around for a very long time, but it's only just starting to gain notoriety. And generally, a social enterprise is a business that either gives 50% of its profit to charity, or it employs people who face barriers to employment. You know, we've done a little bit of column B in the past, but there's all sorts of challenges associated with that until we get big enough to properly afford to employ, you know, people with genuine barriers to employment, which normally means employing other people as well to oversee and help manage that, and so your costs kind of go through the roof. The feasible path for us was that 50% of the profit. If you're looking for specific mistakes, you know, I had a decent wine palate when I first started, but I've learned a lot about what other people like. And so I've bought wines in the past that may not have been as commercially viable as the wines I've been buying in the last kind of 5 or 6 years. I've you know, because I started and I was so green, I bought wines from vineyards who have swapped those wines around. So they've sent me samples, and then I've kind of tried it, really liked it, said, yeah, I'll take it. They've then sent something else. And kind of when you go back to them and say, well, you know, it's not the same wine, they're like, well, you know, it is, we're pretty sure it is. And you kind of go, okay, well, it's so not the same one. That hasn't happened too much, but I just haven't kind of had the confidence in the past, well, back then, to really stand up to that. And so now I just ask for multiple samples, and so I can keep one sample aside for when the actual pellet does turn up, and little things like that, so I can kind of then taste it again, and you're armed with what you might need to go back. But generally, in fact, almost entirely, the vineyards have been amazing with how they've wanted to support me. So that's not really some sort of an ongoing trap that you encounter. I've wasted lots of money on advertising in the past, where I just didn't really know what I was doing. And I used to print out each individual label for each individual bottle for specific charities. And so to put out, if I had an order for if I had 20 at Christmas, let's say, kind of 10 years ago, I might get 20 cases on any given day in December. Well, that would take me over 24 hours to put those 20 cases together. So you'd be kind of working through the night and then into the next night, and then collapsing at the end of Christmas, kind of getting sick, and just kind of that streamlining kind of didn't really come about. I began to streamline, and I stopped hand labeling and started using a labeling machine, but was still putting individual charity stickers on the bottles. And as the business grew, and so let's say yesterday, over the weekend, we did 180 cases, and so that would have taken me over a week to put together. But in fact, we could get that all out on Monday, because we've really streamlined all those processes. So it's all that fine tuning, a whole lot of little mistakes that I think everyone makes when they start a business.
Yeah. We were talking before that it's, any new business is a series of experiments to find out what works and what doesn't. What have you learned about the customer, the types of people who choose to buy from a social impact business, and how to tap into that better?
All right. Well, that's been a really interesting journey. Because again, this is such an unknown. This whole social enterprise is so relatively new to the general public. I've learned that not everyone in Australia cares about charity. I've really dug down into those stats, and the reality is that 49% of Australians do not donate to charity, they do not volunteer, and they do not buy ethically. They will never buy my wine. So already almost 50% of the population forget about it. The other 51%, thank God, 20% volunteer. And then the other, 20% volunteer, donate, and purchase ethically. And when I say purchase ethically, they think about the product they're buying and how that actually is impacting on the world. And so, a good example is who gives a crap toilet paper. And so that 51% is my audience. And then you've kind of got, well, who make up that 51%? And the vast majority of the ones who buy ethically are women. So women make up 90% of my entire customer base. And of course, that then is going to be dictated, that will dictate, the type of marketing I do, how I present the product. And you'll see, the bottles, come with these labels on them. And so we're kind of now doing these kind of really pretty flowers throughout they're all different colors, different things being said, but they're all positive reinforcement. And so, we primarily market towards women. Women give on average a year as much as men do, but men need to be seen to be giving, whereas women incorporate it into their daily lives. Now, that's a generalization, because we do have men who are our customers, and there's a lot of men out there who don't need to be seen giving. But that's why things like Movember and charity auctions are such huge events for men to be donating, and that's where a lot of their kind of money goes to charity. It's because, look, I've grown my moat, and why have you grown your moat? Well, because I'm donating to charity, and or even better still, those charity auctions where kind of the wallets come out and who can pay the most for that.
Oh yes, I once saw a man put their charity donation receipt in their Tinder profile.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yes, you're right.
yeah. So that's a good point. But at least he's donating to charity, and so that's awesome, right? And so what I find is that there's a preconceived idea about the wine with men. The fact is we tap into these tiny runs of boutique wines, and so a vineyard might have expected 2,000 cases. They ended up with 2,060. They only got 2,000 cases worth of labels, and so they're not going to go back to the printer for such a short run because it is mind-blowingly expensive. And so those wines sit in apple crates and so forth in the back of vineyards, and they're what I tap into. So that wine that I grab has a label on it which is mine, and I buy it for significantly less than obviously they sell it for, and then I end up selling it for significantly less than they sell their branded version of that wine. But a lot of times actually I've done wine tastings, and I can talk about, I guess, wines that I don't have anymore because I can't say the vineyard, because if they're selling a Pinot for $40 or $50 and I'm selling it for $22, they want to help, but they don't want to hurt their brand. And so, a Stephanie's Dream Yarralok 2015, they might retail that for $50. I had that until recently for $22.95, and that was incredible wine for $22.95. But I've done blind tastings with blokes where I put my wine, the bottle and a glass, and the Yarralok Stephanie's Dream bottle, glass, poured them into the glasses next to each other and watched those guys try the Stephanie's Dream and go, wow, that's unbelievable. And then try the Goodwill wine and go, oh, don't like that very much. And you're kind of going, well, that's okay. I'm not going to say anything, but you're drinking the same wine here, buddy. So there's a perception. It's kind of like, I look at it like the kind of, don't tell me about boats, I know boats kind of thing, where kind of really at the end of the day, most men aren't going to buy my wine, even though they'll spend $20 extra to buy the same wine, but they want to take that label to dinner and they want other people to see that that's the wine that they've bought. And so, a wine with kind people are my kind of people, guys probably not going to take that to dinner, but a woman would. And particularly if, she's willing to buy it, maybe her first purchase is what I call a pity purchase because they're supporting charity. But once they get that wine home and they try it and they see the value in it, they come back. And so we've kind of got this bizarre return rate of customers. We've only just introduced a wine club where people can, commit to 30, 60, 90-day purchases. But for the last 11 years, 10 years, it's just been, if someone wants to return or not. And we sit at almost 50% return rate, which is unheard of in the wine industry where there's no loyalty. And so, yeah, that's what I've learned about our customers is they're incredibly loyal, fiercely loyal, and primarily women, middle-aged women.
And I guess so much of it is understanding why they choose to support a social enterprise, like what the motivation is for the men and the women.
Well, we've done the research. We kind of a couple of years ago with the marketing research guy, did some research and I really thought the primary focus for people buying my wine would be the charity element. It wasn't. That came third. Supporting a social enterprise was the number one driver, which I found fascinating. And then the quality of the wine was the second driver. And then the charity component came third. And I would have thought it would be, completely the other way around. I would have thought it'd be charity, quality of wine, then social enterprise. But I think people really want to kind of lean into businesses that are actually trying to do something good. That's where they want their dollars to go.
Yes.
That's where I want my dollars to go.
Yeah, 100%. And to encourage more businesses to go down that path as well, to see it as a successful business model.
Oh, it's going to become an incredibly successful business model. No, I'm not talking for Goodwill Wine. I think we will become an incredibly successful business, but I really do think it's right at the crest of that wave. It's building and it's really exciting, the future for social enterprise in Australia. I think, you know, and as I said before, you know, businesses like Who Gives a Crap, you know, who have just taken off so much through this pandemic because of the whole, you know, toilet paper kind of issue. But more importantly for social enterprise is that it's kind of put social enterprise on the map. It's made people really, and mainstream people, and probably that 49% of the people who, given a choice, wouldn't buy Who Gives a Crap because it's a social enterprise, it's charity, kind of blah, blah, blah. But had no choice, right? Because there was no toilet paper, and that was the only option that you could kind of lock yourself into on, you know, into the future. And so I had to do it. And it's just kind of opened up this whole group of the population for social enterprise to be now, I guess, a consideration. We'll see where that goes.
Yeah, and having good experiences with a couple of social enterprises and realizing, oh, it's not bad quality, it's often better quality.
Exactly, that's exactly right. And the
Now,
fact that there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of social enterprises, and people probably are buying stuff and not even realizing it. So, you know.
well, like businesses like your own that at first you didn't realize you were even a social enterprise.
Yeah, that's it.
Now, I'd love to talk a little bit more about the certification, the Social Traders
Yeah.
Certified Social Enterprise. Can you tell us a bit about what that certification means, the process for getting it, and also why other people should possibly look for suppliers or business partners with that certification?
Okay. So a couple of years ago, Social Traders, who are the certification body in Australia, kind of shifted their model from they were set up primarily to support social enterprises, and they've now shifted into social procurement. And so whilst they still support social enterprises and have loads of yeah, information for social enterprises, now the push is turned towards governments supporting social enterprises. And so you look at the Victorian government here in Victoria, if you're a large business and you're going for a government tender, you now have to have a certain percentage of your procurement done through social enterprise, and it's about 3%. So it doesn't sound huge, but if you're, you know, building a freeway or something, and 3% of that spend has to be through social enterprise, then you know you're really going to have to think about how you're going to, you know, what businesses are going to be able to be brought on board with that development that are certified social enterprises. And so and primarily that focus is not towards the 50% giving model, but towards the employing people who face barriers to employment. And that's incredible impact. If you can, you know, employ someone who otherwise might at least consider themselves to be unemployable, but the reality is they are employable, you've changed that person's life, and that's going to have kind of ramifications further afield, whether it be just kind of on you know, money Social Security no longer has to pay, or just their self-confidence and their ability to interact in the community and so forth. That is primarily the focus now for social enterprise. It has been at the larger businesses, and it's starting to filter down to the medium-sized businesses, and very soon it'll be down into the small businesses where you'll be able to tap into their resources and find out where you can get your office cleaned by a social enterprise, or you can buy, you know, your printing can get done by a social enterprise, and if the quality ends up being the same and the cost ends up being the same, and that's a really important thing here, the cost, because the costs are the same, then, you know, why not? Why wouldn't you go and help change people's lives for exactly the same result? So that's what Social Traders do, and they offer a certification for businesses, and by being certified you get to tap into that procurement framework, and so, you know, almost any business could seek that certification and then tap into it, and particularly if you're a business who could, you know, really benefit from being aligned with, you know, John Holland or Australia Post or Westpac, or, so, you know, these large these large businesses, then it might be actually in your interest. You could, whilst, it's not necessarily even giving 50% of your profit. You can go through an employment program and bring some people in who can do a job, and therefore maybe you qualify as a social enterprise that way. But it's fairly rigorous. They audit you. So, there's you can't greenwash. You get found out pretty quick. If we weren't giving 50% of our profit, we'd be struck off kind of instantly. And similarly, if your employment practices aren't actually as you say they are, then likewise you would get struck off, and then you wouldn't be able to qualify for any of that procurement benefit. So that's the social enterprise model, and that's the social enterprise certification. And they're probably the benefits. In my case, John Holland or Westpac probably aren't going to buy my wine, but the public buy my wine. And as people begin to find out more and more about certification, you begin to see what businesses are doing, I guess. And yeah, we've only just put the certification up on our website. We've been certified, since they started. We're one of the first businesses to be certified. But yeah, we're just a bit slow on the website stuff. There we go. There's another mistake I've made is how I've managed my websites.
Yeah, it's all of the things that you get to learn when you're basically a solo entrepreneur at first. So there's a lot of people are very aware of another sort of certification in this space, which is BCorp. Yep. There's less, I guess, awareness at this point about social traders, social enterprise certification. So what would you say to people who kind of put BCorp up as the end all and be all best certification you can get?
I think BCorp's fantastic. I think if you can go and get certified BCorp, you should, because there is an awareness in the community about BCorp, more so than there is about social enterprise. I think the stress on the business is a lot larger with a social enterprise than it is with BCorp. So BCorp's, fairly expensive. It's not hugely expensive for a business. And, there's a lot of things you've got to do within that business to qualify for BCorp. And if you happen to be a social enterprise trying to qualify for BCorp, well, the point system that they use, the very nature of being a social enterprise kind of gets rid of a lot of those points right there and then. And so there's a lot less hoops to jump through in order to get your BCorp, but they're very rigorous as well. And, I think for a business starting out who, if you aren't still living at home with parents, and if you don't have a warehouse with wine to go and sleep in, maybe BCorp's the way to go, because people are noticing and they're really giving it a huge amount of regard. It's something that they're is registering and they're looking for it.
Yeah, that demand for that label is huge. I think we just need more people to understand the difference between having policies in place and having an impact in the world. And I think one of the good things about, I guess, the social traders social enterprise certification is it's less about management systems and more about impact.
Yeah. But what is impact too? And that's been something that I found really challenging. And there's different organizations that run their businesses on determining what impact is for other businesses. And the definitions range from the intent of a business to if you existed, would anything have changed? And I really like that last one. I think that is that's for me is the true impact definition. Is if I wasn't running this business, would anything change? And I have moments where I wonder if anything would change. But we have.
And I think it's good to have in the back of your head as a guiding light for the business at all times, right? Like
yes.
and all of your decisions get to be made with that in mind.
I think that's spot on. That's exactly right.
Now, we're getting close to the 45-minute mark, so I'll ask you kind of some summary questions, I guess. Firstly, what's the best decision you've ever made in your business?
Taking on investment. I'm scared about going into a round A, because I'm scared about the type of investor that is going to bring into the business, and just how cutthroat that might then become. But certainly angel investment was easily the best decision I've made, for all the reasons I explained before.
Yeah, exactly. Wonderful. I always try to encourage small businesses to focus on just one key influence that they have, you know, something that's core to their business model that creates an impact in the world rather than trying to do everything. So in your case, what would you say that is? What would you say is Goodwill Wine's superpower?
I think we've stayed true to what we set out to achieve, and that was to reward supporters with good quality wine, first and foremost. And so the reason why the business is growing is because it's actually some really careful curation of wine has gone on. So there's, you know, for every wine we bring on, there's tens, if not hundreds of wines that we don't. And so that's been the main thing, I think, that has retained a loyalty above and beyond the charity element of the business.
Yeah. I guess it comes back to that old, you know, it has to do good, but it also has to be high quality.
Exactly. There's no point. If no one's going to buy it, then there's no good that's going to get done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as you said before, they come in for the good that it does, and they come back for the quality product.
That's exactly right.
Wonderful. And now, in a bit of summary of all of your mistakes and lessons learned over the time, what would be your number one tip for small businesses looking to either go into sort of a social enterprise model or just looking to be more sustainable generally?
Seek advice. That's there's a lot of people out there who know better than you. I think back to when I was a teenager and a young adult. I went off and made a feature film, and oh my goodness, what a dog's breakfast that was, and it didn't have to be. So much effort, so much time, so much money. If I had just gone looking for help, it would have been a very different story. And I think that's across everything, and it's hard to tell that to a young person when they're so full of kind of the energy and the excitement and the certainty. But I'm sure a lot of people watching this aren't going to be people in their 20s who may be into their third business, and I guess what I'm saying is self-evident for those people is there are people out there who can help you. Anyone who thinks they know all the answers is all they're doing is pushing people away, and they're the kind of person you really don't want to have that conversation with, because they're alienating people around them all the time, I'd say. And there's so many people out there who want to help, who are prepared to help, and don't even necessarily, they don't need payment for help. They're just willing to do so. But at the same time, cherry pick that help, because you can get some terrible advice.
Do you have any tips on where to find those people that are keen to help?
Well, within the community you're in, there should be people. So I found a lot of mine within the social enterprise community. There's always going to be organisations, such as in my instance, social traders, who were able to introduce me to all sorts of people. And then I've extended that. I talk to social enterprises, new social enterprises all the time, and we really are a sharing community, a family of sorts, and so I'll tell anyone anything that I've learned, and I've got a decade's worth of mistakes to have learned from, and you can find those people too in your community. Is my advice.
Yeah, that's a perfect recommendation to find that community, that network that can support you.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I know that we could keep talking, but how can people learn more from you or about the organizations that you've spoken about, or stay in touch and follow Goodwill Wine?
Well, we've got a website, and you can sign up to receive emails on that website. So we've always got lots of information, alongside new wines and offers and so forth. My and we've got contact details on that website. So that's probably a good place to start. As I said, I'm more than happy to talk to anyone. So if you would shoot me an email, just jump on goodwillwine.com.au and hit the contact button, and we can start that conversation.
Yeah, perfect. And I can say from experience as a newsletter subscriber that not only are there you have some really interesting blogs that you share about the journey that you've been on, but also you have a chance to win some free wine.
Oh yeah, that's right. We give wine away every week.
That's a good selling point. Don't forget that.
Sorry.
Wonderful. And I'll also add in the notes links to the Social Traders website. And interestingly, for anyone who wants to buy from more social enterprises, they have now relaunched their social enterprise finder, so their database of social enterprises to look
Correct.
through.
There's
So
lots on there. So definitely, yeah, put that link up and go have an explore.
yeah, find all the wonderful businesses like your own.
That's it.
Okay, thank you so much, David, for all of the hard slog that you've been through, hopefully finding success now and shortly in the future. And thank you for kind of being that guiding light for other businesses following that path.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, and I'm wishing you the best of luck too.
Thank you.
Okay.